Who is Slipknot?
I don't understand what the hell you're saying!
Okay, can you explain to me about the band?
Yeah, absolutely. Slipknot, one of the most iconic and most recognizable metal bands out there. I've been a fan for quite a while, being introduced by my mom a couple of years ago. Thank you, Mom. I quite literally love Slipknot so much that I traveled all the way from my irrelevant little island up to Alberta to go see them in Knotfest for my birthday. Whether you like metal or not, you've definitely heard of these guys one way or another. Maybe you recognize them for their masks, maybe you recognize them for their loud music. They've been around for a while and they're still making music. And for those of you that need more context of what Slipknot is before we learn about their history, I'm going to give you some. Slipknot is an American heavy metal band formed in Des Moines, Iowa around 1995. Slipknot is well known for their attention-grabbing image and impressionable masks, also not to mention their chaotic, crazy live shows. Now that we have a surface-level understanding of Slipknot, we can get into the next segment. Joey Jordison, also known as Number One, was a co-founder of Slipknot and also the drummer. He was born April 26, 1975 in Iowa. Growing up, Joey had a particular interest in music, such as rock, where his parents would sit him down in front of a radio instead of putting him in front of a TV. Later, the mother remarried and set up a funeral parlor, leading Joey to have to step up and become the quote-unquote man of the house. During this time, Joey had been making speed metal and went around supporting local bands to be their drummer or guitarist. Joey ended up co-founding Slipknot after being approached by Mark Anthony Cordovos, who at the time was working on the project called The Pale Ones, which was Slipknot's prior name. Joey also performed in a band called Murder Dolls, being their guitarist. Sadly, Joey passed away on July 21st, 2021 at the age of 46. He had passed away in his sleep, and it is thought that the cause was a severe health condition that was impacting his spine and his legs, the condition being transverse myelitis. Number 2, another founder of Slipknot, Paul Gray, also known as The Pig, was born April 8, 1972, and passed away May 24, 2010, at the age of 38 from an OD. Paul was born in Las Vegas, later relocating to Iowa with his family. Originally, he played guitar, but ended up swapping to bass once they moved. He has also done backup vocals for the band too. Gray was married to his wife, Brianna, from 2008 until his passing, and had a child born after he passed away. With the passing of Paul, the band was left devastated, then holding a press conference to answer any questions and say kind words about their friend. In September 2012, Paul's physician was charged with involuntary manslaughter relating to his passing, as well as 7 other patients. The physician was charged because he was continuously prescribing Paul high dosages when he knew that Paul had a history with addiction. Number 3, Chris Fenn, was born on February 24, 1973, and is the percussionist of the band. Chris originally came into Slipknot to replace Brandon Darner, the original percussionist. Prior to being in the band, he was an electrician. He's a father of 2 sons and is quite fond of golfing. He also has ornithophobia, an irrational fear of birds. He parted ways with Slipknot in 2019 due to unfair payment, suing them, and then later settling it. Number 4 of Slipknot, Jim Rue, was born on October 2nd, 1971, and is one of 2 guitarists for Slipknot. He was originally born in Las Vegas, but then later moving to Iowa. He performed in the bands Dead Front and Stone Sour with Corey Taylor, then later joining Slipknot in 1999 to replace Josh Brainerd. Jim is one of the main songwriters for the band, and also had wrote guitar parts for All Hope Is Gone and The Great Chapter. He has yet to start a family because he's touring all the time with Slipknot and Stone Sour, so he figured he'd wait until he was done with that to begin one. Number 5, Craig Jones, was born in, you guessed it, Iowa. He joined Slipknot to replace Donnie Steele to play guitar, and then later moved on to samples and keyboard. He was also given the nickname 133 or 133 because at the time that was the state-of-the-art processing speed. Craig's personal life was very private, giving him the nickname the Quiet One. In interviews, he would just stand and stare instead of any real response. And very recently in 2023, Craig parted ways with the band. Number 6, Sean Crahan, also known as Clown, was born on September 24th, 1969 in Iowa. He's a percussionist playing drums and metal bins occasionally. In college, Sean had mastered in creative writing and always shown an interest towards music, being in a few bands prior to Slipknot. He also works in film and photography, publishing a Slipknot photo album in 2012 named The Apocalyptic Nightmare. He is the father of 4 and has been married to his wife Chantel since 1993. Unfortunately, his youngest daughter, Gabriel, had passed away from an OD. Number 7 of Slipknot, Mick Thompson, born on November 3rd, 1973, is one of the guitarists for the band. Mick had grown up with a major interest in death metal, but has also mentioned before that one of his biggest influences was the Beatles. Same with majority of the members, Mick began his music career playing with local bands. He claims that he's quite the introvert, and that would much rather be left alone and have his quiet time. He also married his wife, Stacy Riley, in 2012. Fun fact, on my birthday, March 11th, 2015, Mick had got into a drunken knife fight with his brother, being stabbed in the back of the head, and, he came out of it fine, but they were both hospitalized, and it wasn't the greatest thing to have come from him. Anyways, number 8, we have Corey Taylor, is the singer and songwriter of the band, born on December 8th, 1973, in Iowa. He's also the lead singer and songwriter for Stone Sour, and joined Slipknot to replace the original lead singer, Andre Kosfine. I don't know how to pronounce it. Corey had it really rough growing up, having substance problems and having to move to at least 25 different states by the time he was 15 so his mother could find work. He's had a lifelong battle with his mental health and his trauma, being very public about it. I recommend watching this interview that I'll link in the description. When he was younger, Corey's grandmother introduced him to Elvis, and then later he evolved to listening to Black Sabbath. He then discovered his passion for singing while singing along to a song with his cousin. Then eventually he ended up back in Iowa in his grandmother's custody. Corey has 3 children, being Griffin, his son, and 2 daughters. Griffin has his own band where he does his own thing, and he does it wonderfully. I could give Corey his whole video, but this is the best summary that I could cough out. And now we have number 9, which is the last but certainly not the least, Sid Wilson. He was born in Iowa on January 20th, 1977, having 2 English parents. Sid is the DJ for Slipknot, playing on turntables, keys, and synth. He's known for stage diving. Once in 2008, he actually jumped off the stage 10 feet and broke both of his heels. Iconic, love that for him. He also has a collection of Transformers tattoos, showing his love for the franchise. He's the father of a son born in 2022, who he had with Kelly Osbourne, which is a singer, actor, fashion designer, and model. And also not to mention that she's Ozzy Osbourne's daughter. I love Sid. I think he's quite the character. So who replaced the members that left the band? To keep it short, I'm just going to give a brief summary on who they are. Jay Weinberg stepped in 2014 after Joey left the band, previously subbing in as a drummer for Bruce Springsteen's E Street, as well as Madball and Against Me. Tortilla Man, also known as Michael Pfaff, I don't know how to pronounce that. He joined in place of Chris doing percussion, and is mostly a meme amongst the community because of his mask. And finally, we have the newest member in place of Craig, who kind of looks like the guy from Jeepers Creepers. I forgot to mention Alessandro Venturella, which was the bassist that replaced Paul Gray. Before Slipknot was formed, the music scene in Iowa was always changing, especially regarding band members. Jim Root at the time played with the most successful band, Atomic Opera, where all the other members of Slipknot had their own cliques. Eventually, amongst all the swapping of band members, Paul Gray and Sean Crahan came up with the project, The Pale Ones, with vocalist Andres Kosfine and guitarist Donnie Steele. Not too long after, they ended up inviting Joey to the project. Soon enough, they were planning rehearsals for the band and starting to come up with their own music. And around this time, this is when Joey recommended the name Slipknot. In 1995, Slipknot began recording their music in a studio, which ended up costing them a lot of money where they weren't signed to a brand. A year later in February, Donnie, one of the guitarists, decided to leave due to his religious beliefs, saying that he needed to find himself more spiritually. Then that's when Craig Jones stepped in as the guitarist. After spending some time figuring themselves out, they finally came up with Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat, released in 1996. They managed to get themselves minimal attention, having their songs played on local radio stations, but not much more than that. To better the band's sound, they went on the search for a more melodic vocalist. They then scouted out their now lead vocalist, Corey Taylor, and he was recruited from the also known Des Moines band, Stone Sour. This moved their lead singer to backing vocals and percussion, but inevitably he left the band. Then, the DJ, Sid Wilson, was recruited as the band's DJ, as their 9th member. Slipknot then received a $500,000 record deal with Roadrunner Records after getting attention from their demo that they made exclusively for labels. The band then publicly signed this deal in 1998. Finally, now that we know who the band members are, we can segue into their albums. And you can get a super exclusive internet opinion that matters because I'm a random person on the internet. Just kidding. The band first began with their demo released in 1996 called Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat, with the original vocalist Andres. This album didn't receive any special attention, but it did get some radio play locally. This caused them to look into how they could improve the material and then better themselves to get more recognition. This album can be found on YouTube, and it's experimental. I can tell that this album has like a Black Sabbath influence with like a hint of screamo and groove metal, and also some Limp Bizkit-esque vocals in Only One. A few songs were reused later, such as Tattered and Torn, Gently, and Only One. In 1999, Slipknot released their self-titled album. This is when Corey stepped in to be the lead vocalist, Jim Root taking place playing guitar, and then finally Chris Fenn doing what Chris Fenn does. They then got a deal to play in Ozfest, which doubled their audience because of their impressions with their masks and their stage presence and their hardcore essence. Only a year later, the album reached platinum. Most notable songs from this album would be Wait and Bleed and Spit It Out. To me personally, I feel like this album in particular is like the epitome of nu metal, even though that's not necessarily what they want to be associated with. I think it's pretty bang on to like what nu metal is like categorized as. After being so successful with their self-titled album, they then later went on to release Iowa in 2001. This to me is their heaviest album to date, including very graphic and explicit lyrics, almost teetering on like death metal. This is also known as a rough period for the band because the members have been having altercations between each other and also having conflicts in schedule with their own projects in Slipknot. Nonetheless, hit songs from this album would include the Heretic Anthem, Disaster Piece, and Left Behind, which was Grammy nominated. It also should be mentioned that in this era, Corey actually didn't scream the right way, because there's actually a right way to scream when you're singing metal. So essentially, he really damaged his voice during this period and had to go on to learn how to scream the right way. Volume 3, The Subliminal Verses, being an essential album released in 2004, produced hits like Before I Forget and Duality, which is two of their most popular songs to date. Major step down from Iowa in terms of intensity. So it was kind of like if you put Iowa and self-titled in a blender and then mix it up for a little bit, and then there you have it, you have the Subliminal Verses. They had also won a Grammy in 2006 for Best Metal Performance for their song Before I Forget. All Hope Is Gone, their album released in 2008, is their most radio-friendly album by far, with songs like Snuff, Dead Memories, and Sulfur. But their hit song Psychosocial is also brought to the table. And even my mom likes it. It's that good. Around 2 years after the album was released is when Paul was found passed away in his hotel room. This caused the band to have indifferences on the future of what Slipknot was going to be. Joey said that they were already in the works of making a new album, while Corey said that he wasn't sure if he even wanted anything to do with the band. The Grey Chapter was released in 2014, around the same time Joey decided to part ways with the band because of his health condition, and then went on to pursue his own music career with Murder Dolls. Corey stated himself that this album was meant to be a mixture of the Subliminal Verses and Iowa. In this album they managed to spit out the songs Devil and I and their recent popular hit Custer. Then finally the long-awaited We Are Not Your Kind finally dropped in 2019. This is when they entered their artsy era and were very experimental with their new music. Experimental such as their song Spiders. It's a questionable song. I can't say that like it's 100% like the best song ever, but like I mean I could like it if I really tried to. And this is also when Chris left the band. It seems like with every album we're losing another member. And oh my god, this is the reveal of probably the biggest mistake Corey Taylor has ever made in his life with his new cling wrap mask. I cannot believe that management let this one slide, but he did fix it. This album is great despite their change in artistic direction, coming out with songs like Narrow Fort and Unsainted, and my personal favorite, Solway Firth. If I were to compare it to anything, I literally can't. Finally, we have their last album with Roadrunner Records, and their most recent album to date, The End So Far, was released in 2022. This album opens up with Adderall, the song, which blindsided me completely. I actually had to check if it was a Slipknot song when I first clicked on the album because it was so different, so dad rock. They also released a few singles to hype up the album, being the Chapelton Rag, the Dying Song, and Yen, which is my favorite song from the album. It's a very good song. Once again, very different, but very good. From those singles, my expectations for this album were like extremely high. So, I didn't hate anything on the album. It was just really repetitive by the second half. I did not like any of the songs, so good job, guys. Slipknot's masks have changed with every era they've had, with some members sticking the same and others kind of exploring new styles, we'll say. The concept of the band wearing masks originally began when Clown had worn a clown mask that he got from a Halloween store, and then all of the other members had piggybacked off of him wearing their own masks, letting the band have their own unique identity. So I'm going to give a relatively quick summary on who wore what mask and if they ever wore any different masks. Joey wore an expressionless white kabuki mask, decorating it with different designs. He stuck with it during the entirety of his time with Slipknot. Paul Gray stuck with the pig mask, upgrading it to be better quality and have different designs with things such as nails in the mouth and lightning across the forehead. Jim stuck with a jester type of mask, cutting off the chin to show off his luscious beard over the years. Clown is clown, so he stuck to the clown masks with different variations and nowadays goes as a disco clown or a metallic clown or maybe even a red metallic clown. Chris stuck with the Pinocchio look with the long nose and then had different color variations of his mask. Mick started out with an old goalie mask, then traded it for his metal mask with a caged mouth and angry eyebrows. Craig stuck with the spiky mask, headbanging until all the nails would fall off. His evolution gets more and more funny looking. With time, the mask was less defined and more smooth, I guess. Now I'm going to get to the more evolutiony evolutions of the masks. Sid. He has quite the variety. Starting off with his gas mask, upgrading it to a skull gas mask, then going for a Terminator cosplay that had adjustable eyebrows, and then went back to a sort of gas mask without the mouth part and like caged eyes, I guess. In the We Are Not Your Kind era, he then maneuvered to a Darth Sidious cosplay, and finally, as of now, he's reverted back to robot. Finally, we have Corey Taylor, who has also had many masks. Masks. It's a hard word to say. I don't think anybody can say that word properly. First starting with a mask where he fed his actual hair through it, later cutting off his real hair to attach to that same mask. During the subliminal verses, he went for a stitched-up disfigured face. 4 years later, he changed it to a white mask with one eye bigger than the other, and a Frankenstein kind of look going over the top of his head. 2014 to 2016, Corey went back to a variation of the disfigured face mask. Then, during the We Are Not Your Kind era, he probably made the worst decision of his life, wearing that mask. He quickly changed this and got a much better mask that looks like this. This is just a quick summary of all the masks. I highly recommend that you go to the House of Masks YouTube channel that I'll have linked in the description below, where he goes way more in depth about everything. Slipknot has also had a handful of feuds over the years, and I'm going to be talking about their feuds with Limp Bizkit and Machine Gun Kelly. So basically what happened with Limp Bizkit back in '99, Slipknot burned several magazines with Korn's drummer promoting Calvin Klein. This didn't sit right with Fred Durst, Limp Bizkit's lead vocalist, therefore causing him to call Slipknot's fans fat, ugly kids, then leading Corey to hit back in an interview saying that Limp Bizkit fans are also Slipknot fans. This altercation, I'm gonna call it, was resolved, and Limp Bizkit actually later paid tribute to the band members that passed away. 2022, Machine Gun Kelly called out Slipknot saying, let me read this. "You wanna know what I'm really happy I'm not doing? Being 50 years old wearing a freaking weird mask on a freaking stage talking crap. So anyway, what's everyone's favorite candy? Reese's Pieces?" Anyways, Slipknot's fans really did not like this, and they had bashed him nonstop, which makes a lot of sense. Corey then responded saying that he genuinely does not care enough to talk about the situation, and it's revealed that all the beef started because Corey did not want to be on Machine Gun Kelly's song, even though Machine Gun Kelly was saying that his verse wasn't good enough and he didn't even want him on the song in the first place. Okay. Slipknot is definitely a unique case where a bunch of people locally got together and did something that they were passionate about and took off. I found a lot of comfort in their music, and thankfully I was able to hear them live, which was such an honor to be able to do, considering I had to go through so much effort to go see them. But yeah, like, overall I just want to say, like, Slipknot's great, history's great, members are cool. I also just want to say thank you so much for watching the Baby Metal video, which meant a lot. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll probably be back with another music-related video sometime soon. Goodbye!